Ew. Landon, I am so enamored by this story, and I don't know if a lot of my audience is. They're Buckeye fans, but I can't get past this. I want to know, like, coming into the preseason, Penn State, to me, was almost a lock to make it back to the Final Four. You know, first off, I'm a Northeast Ohio guy. I watched Drew in high school. I've always rooted for his personal success. You get Jim Knowles, which obviously that created a whole lot more drama, which I loved. You got DDS back and Nick and Katron. James has always not been good in big games. We know his record, but he's always won as the favorite and lost as the dog. And I'm thinking, well, now he's coming in with more talent. He's going to be the favorite. He's going to win. I thought they were an absolute lock to get back to the semifinal. I chose him to be in the national championship game. That was my prediction. Most of my Buckeye audience thought I was nuts, that they would somehow screw it up. Boy, were they right, man. What were your thoughts preseason?
Yeah, it was, dude. I was obviously on the same train the media was, that everybody thought this was finally the year for Penn State. And a big reason why was not only Penn State actually put money forth to bring all these guys back and go out and get some stuff out of the transfer portal of what they needed, but you go out, you get Jim Knowles, which let's just from the Penn State fans, and I don't even necessarily fully classify as a Penn State. I mean, I'm trying to cover more of everything, but from the Penn State fans, I will apologize to the Ohio State fans that you were right. Jim Knowles does take away. He literally gave. So Jim Knowles' defense is getting gashed by Northwestern, UCLA, Iowa. There's been 4 games in a row now, Juck, where we have needed one stop to win against some awful teams. And Jim Knowles' defense cannot get off the field. He gives a quote last night. He's like, yeah, my defense is complex. It's very complex. He's like, it's an NFL defense, and guys are going to have to get used to it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you see, I'm watching the tape, and these guys, it's clearly too much for them. We got guys not filling the correct gaps. We got guys clearly confused. And when you're confused, you cannot play at 100% speed, and so you don't have confidence. So we got guys getting blown off the ball, linebackers not going where they need to be. And it just like feels like he's like stubborn, like, oh yeah, you're still going to learn this NFL defense anyways. And it's like, why not dumb it down? That's right. Dude, that's your job as a coach. If your players are not receiving the information and putting it out on the field correctly, it's your job to fix it and say, okay, how can we simplify this a little bit? How can we make this easier for them to understand? But it just seems like he's stubborn. And I've noticed that in games too. Something is not working and we're getting gashed on it, and he just keeps doing it. And I'm like, I can't understand why. Everybody remembers the UCLA game, Penn State obviously getting upset by Nico and crew over there. Nico's taken off for 130 yards, all on scramble plays, and he will not put a spy out. And he puts the Dennis Dennis Sutton, which is basically a bigger Jack Sawyer.
He's a beast.
As the QB spy. And I'm like, he's 275 pounds and 6'5". Why? And guess what? He puts him as the QB spy, and Nico takes off for a touchdown because there's no chance in hell he was catching him. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense with what Jim Knowles is doing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Ohio State fans were right. It takes way too long. And that's what partially didn't make sense. Like looking back for James Franklin, you have what is one more go around. It was kind of like the last dance for a lot of these guys.
Right.
It was like, all right, let's go out and get a defensive coordinator that's notorious for taking time to get his defense going. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So, but as a whole, yeah, I mean, everybody, I think majority of people thought it was going to be at least somewhat Penn State's year, and boy, did it collapse quite quickly. And there was no leadership. Like, I'll just tell you guys, like watching it, but also like the team had no leadership. James Franklin seemed like he was basically checked out after Oregon, and it all just kind of crumbled down after that. We had one of our star linebackers, Tony Rojas, go down with an ACL too in practice 2 days after Oregon, and it was just like, it was done. And you could just feel like the guys, it was like, and I said it, I wasn't afraid. Some people, like Penn State fans, would attack me like, how can you accuse James Franklin? I'm like, he quit. Like, I played for him, I committed, I played for him, all that. But like, I watched him, like, he quit on this team after Oregon. That was very evident to me. And so I know we're going to get into it, but I was completely fine with sending him packing. You could still be grateful for everything he did for Penn State, but it was time.
I think, Landon, that we have seen in our lives, you're a little bit younger than me, the two most amazing stories in college football that we've ever witnessed this year. And it's this historic Penn State collapse and Indiana in 2 years kind of cementing themselves as an elite program from being the depths of the Big Ten for my entire life. I mean, for their entire history. Those two stories, like that Indiana story, obviously it can't happen in the old days. It can't happen until the new rules in the last 4 or 5 years. But watching that happen and coming to the realization that, yes, this program is actually that good and they're probably here to stay, and seeing this collapse at Penn State, it is the absolute biggest collapse we've ever seen from start to finish. And I honestly feel like the Oregon game, I've put so much thought into this. Like it had to be that was like the measuring stick. If we can't do this, then we just can't get it done. And like so much put into that was the game, everything all off season. It was all about that game. You know, the whiteout, they're coming in. That's the team we've got to beat. Once we get past them, we're rolling. And to lose in that way, it was almost like as soon as that interception at the end of the game, like right there, it all died. Everything died. And you got to wonder, how weak was the foundation if it was all contingent on one damn game? Because I think if they beat Oregon, you and I are talking about an undefeated matchup coming up here. We're talking about the game of the year. Penn State, Ohio State, number 1, number 2 at the shoe, all the storylines. Instead, it's like people are wondering, should we be worried? Like they still have talent? Nah, we shouldn't be worried. Grunkmeyer, I don't know. I've seen Grunkmeyer in high school. You know, it's just the conversation's so different.
Yeah, no, it was truly James Franklin's time to finally show, can he get it done with everything? He was given everything he needed from coordinators, coaching staff to players, whatever he wanted out of the portal, and he still couldn't do it. And to give you some background, there was already some cracks in the foundation. Franklin came into this year asking the AD, Pat Kraft, for an extension. And as you can imagine, the past 8 or 9 years truly hasn't won a big game. If you want to hang your hat on Utah in the Rose Bowl, and look, I was a part of that team. It was a great moment. But I've had some people relate it to me like this. Imagine going into a bar with an Ohio State fan, a Bama fan, a Georgia fan, and they're talking about their best wins. And we're like, oh, yeah, Utah in 2022. You're getting laughed out of the bar. That cannot be your big win. I don't care. I mean, we knocked out Cam Rising, kind of ended his career actually from that game. But I'm like, he never had, look, only 4 wins in James Franklin's career at Penn State did he win as an underdog. One of those in 2014 when he first got there. 2 were in 2016, Wisconsin Big Ten Championship, and obviously Ohio State game. And then it was like Wisconsin in 2021. It was my first year when we traveled there week 1, and we were kind of underdogs coming off of the COVID year. So never beat the teams, the big teams. And we all know his record. And it was like, finally, you look around college football. And this is, preseason thoughts. You finally got one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Ohio State, Oregon, they got unproven quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You have the better offensive line. You got the defensive coordinator mastermind. And like that's how it was set up. You got the 2 best running backs in college football. And it was just like it all just imploded. And you saw it earlier. Like we struggled. And if you looked at the box score, Penn State looked fine, but those first 3 games where we played Nevada, FIU, and Villanova, it like I said, it looked fine score-wise, but it was sloppy. It was bad football. We went into halftime only up like 10-0 on FIU with like a blocked field goal at the end, and it was a complete mess. And you could see the lack of fire, the lack of leadership. Like I don't think this team fully had it from the beginning. And as I said, after Oregon, it was kind of like, okay, and you said this too, like more of the same. Like, here we go, 10-2 again, Oregon, Ohio State losses, and we'll find a way into the playoffs. And you go out to UCLA, and that happens. And it's like, oh, okay, like James Franklin, like this has to be over. There's nowhere to go from here. Because I was talking about this with someone yesterday. Like, I think this could go down as one of the biggest collapses in football history. Forget college football. Look at, and it's not even just being ranked number 2 preseason and being this bad. I mean, that is still not having a Power 4 win. What is it, October 22nd as we're recording this, and you still don't have a Power 4 win in the 2025 college football season coming in as the number 2 ranked team. But it was the buildup. It was the buildup of the past 9 years for James Franklin of not getting over the hump. And we're going to give you everything. And you have everything on everybody. And you got the proven guys. You got the senior laden team. And you not only do you lose the big ones, but you fall flat on your face if you're Penn State and James Franklin, and there's really nowhere to go except look in the mirror at yourself.
Asking for that extension, which I heard you tell this story that he asked Pat Kraft, and Kraft basically, yeah, we're not really going to go about it right now. And then he tried to go over his head, which that's just like Bush League as hell. And then it got back to Kraft, which is like, man, that is not the way you want to start this year. There is some part of me that does feel for him, because it's like, all right, the first year, it feels like he's finally been given the support that some of his biggest competitors have been given. In the very first year, they crash and he's out. However, I got this habit. It's probably a bad habit, but when coaches lose, I watch their press conferences, and I usually clip out a little something and have a little fun with it. Sometimes I do that. I do that once in a while. But James Franklin, every game he's ever lost, he always reminds everybody what he's done the past 10 years. And it drives me nuts. Just own your loss. We all know what you've done the last 12 years. And when I watched after Northwestern, he was asked, do you want to be the head coach of Penn State? Essentially point blank. And he did not answer, absolutely. Hell yes, I do. And if you can't answer that publicly, it's time to go. That's it. That's it. And after that, he gets fired. And I'm like, absolutely, man. If I'm employing this man and he's asked point blank in public and he won't say, absolutely, I want to be the head coach here, that's it. You essentially resigned to me. You gave up. And as you said, I'm so stunned that these seniors wanted to come back to throw in the towel so quick, to be honest, because I look at the team, the Ohio State team last year, like such a different vibe from those guys than these guys seem to just like, I don't know, man.
Well, yeah, what's crazy, like so many guys bet on this year. There was so many people that bet on this year. We even had some assistant coaches that could have left and they decided to come back. And it was like, all right, this is going, and like everybody thought this is going to be the year. And it's just completely deflated. And that's why I say it's clear the leadership isn't there. But it was clear the leadership wasn't there from the top down with James Franklin. And like you said, you're sitting there and you got James Franklin going up on the game day set and Nick Saban scolding Penn State and the Penn State fans for not being grateful enough. Mind you, Nick Saban and James Franklin had the same representation, not only the same representation with CAA, and as did 3 other people on that set represented by CAA, but they also have the same agent, Jimmy Sexton. So I think that is interesting to note as well. So, but you get the most respected man in college football saying this fan base is ridiculous. Penn State's ridiculous for firing you. And so it honestly swayed a lot of people. And I thought that was so ridiculous because people, I think like Ohio State and Ohio State fans that have been close enough to it can smell the BS off of that. And you guys have seen it. I mean, James Franklin, it was so sour here. Tell me a coach that not only has argued with fans in the stands once, James Franklin did it 4 times in his career. One of them at the spring game. How are you arguing with a student, a 20-year-old in the stands in the spring game? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. So it was so sour, like you said. There was no way to go but to end it. Pat Kraft, our AD, even said that. But yeah, if you can't say you want to be the head coach of a team and you deflect and say, oh, it's about the guys in the locker room, how can you move forward with that? There was no way to move forward with Penn State and James Franklin. Yes, this was technically the first year he kind of got everything, but this was his test. It was like, listen, you've had such a long leash that you've been given where, I mean, look, I know people like to say 2020 doesn't count, but it counted for a lot of people. It counted for Ohio State and Alabama, and a lot of people did well. So you can't just excuse Penn State that they, why did no one else have a, crappy year? I mean, it still counted. So you go back-to-back years. So we went like 7-6 in 21, and we had a losing record in 2020. And they stuck with James Franklin. So I think that's such a BS narrative from Nick Saban and everybody else involved that Penn State was too impatient. I saw, I love the guys at On 3, but they're putting out articles saying, patience is dead in college football, and Penn State proved it. He had 12 years.
What are you talking about?
Like he was here forever and never truly, outside of 2016, never truly won anything big. And like I said, I played for the guy. I have gratitude that he was here. He continued to pay for my schooling when I had to medically retire. So like I can be grateful for that. but it doesn't change the facts. Like I cover Penn State and all of the Big Ten, all that from a journalistic, perspective where I'm going to be fair to everybody. And it was fair that Penn State said, hey, it's time to move on. I don't know where we go from here. And like I said, the relationship as a whole between Pat Kraft, the athletic director, and James Franklin was sour. The fans were sour. The players and James Franklin, it felt like they had essentially quit on each other. Wherever you want to put that blame, it's right. James. He's the CEO, basically. Yeah. It's his job to have them motivated and ready. And everybody was just kind of done. I mean, we're sitting there, game on the line against Northwestern, his career basically, and we run a quarterback draw with Drew Aller on 3rd and 10. And I said, okay, you just wave the white flag, you're done. You clearly you no longer want to be here. So that was kind of my synopsis of watching it all go down.
Landon, when I saw just over the course of, I guess it's been a couple years, but after every loss, him walking with his daughter after the game, and the fan base at Penn State. And it felt like the people waiting to jeer at the end of the game just got getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And boy, this last one, it was like, this is untenable. This is untenable at this point. Those people look like they would love to like start throwing rocks at him. Like it was like, this can't go on anymore. This is too bad. And this time he even sent his daughter ahead. Like, you go, I'm going to wait. And I was like, whoa, this is getting bad now. Like,
I'm not gonna it was some sad stuff. The sense he made sure
that stuff.
I mean, he made sure that like he was the last guy to go in because he knew what the tunnel walk was going to be like.
Yeah,
and like that's where it starts to get. As much as these guys are paid a lot, and you can think whatever. And his daughter was still like in there, and she's like on the ground like crying because she's hearing like her dad just get completely cursed out. Like,
that's awful. But to be honest, man, she shouldn't have been there. Like, I'm not having my kid around that. Like, get her out of here.
Absolutely. When you know what the situation is, I'm the same way. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, when you have a fan base, and this was kind of, and he finally got rid of this mantra, but he kept saying after a lot of like losses or like close games against teams where it shouldn't have been, like he kept saying 99% of fan bases would kill to be in our position. And that was his that was his go-to. And people hated that because it was like, we don't care. Like, we want to be the Ohio States and the Alabamas and the Georgias. Why do you keep saying, yeah, we're better than, it feels better than being a Pitt fan? Well, no crap. It better be. We're Penn State. And so that soured a lot of people. He did struggle in press conferences to fully just take responsibility. And I've even just talking to Penn State fans, like Penn State lost to Iowa with an interim head coach, Terry Smith. He played here. He was a captain here. He was our DB coach here. Now, obviously, the acting head coach. And we got in there, and it was so refreshing. He was like, they were like, hey, what were the struggles on the offense? He's like, hey, we can't complete a downfield pass. We have no deep threat, no passing attack, and it's a problem, and I need to get it fixed, and it's on me. And everybody was just like, oh my God,
what?
We just fully just like the head coach just put it on his shoulders and said, I need to fix it. And it was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. So that's like I said, that's where I struggle with the national media being like, how could you do this? And I'm like, if you watch closely, there was no salvaging after that Northwestern loss. And like Franklin knew, you stay on the field to hug everybody, and the way he walked off and the way he was in the press conference, like he knew he was going to get fired.
He absolutely knew. And that's why I took issue with him getting up on that Sports Center set or whatever, the game day set, and saying, I was shocked. Like, you had no idea. Like, dude, you just had a press conference after a game you lost to flipping Northwestern and wouldn't even say, yes, I want to be the head coach. You're shocked you're fired? No, I don't think you are. I think that's a bunch of BS. But when I look at the way that the media has treated this all in all, I'll tell you what it reminds me of, Landon. It reminds me of last year when Ryan Day lost the game and the media came out immediately attacking Ryan Day. What's Ohio State going to do with him? Yada, yada, yada. And then when they realized that about 50% of the Ohio State fan base was in agreement with them, they turned their direction onto the Ohio State fan base and said, these people are crazy. Look at the lunatic fringe. When they were just saying the same thing 20 minutes earlier. I mean, whatever is the easiest, scolding narrative, it seems that's the one they want to go with. I do not like the practice of the scolding of fan bases. Piss off. This is what makes college football. It's these rabid lunatics. That's what it is. And that's who we are. I'm proud of it.
I couldn't agree more. Like we expect a lot. We're the top tier fan bases, and it's like, yeah, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. You're paid $10 million a year. It is what it is, and yeah. So you see that, you see all the headlines of they want to put out, oh, Ryan Day needs security, this that, and same thing for James Franklin. All the fans were saying this to him, and it's the same way for both fan bases, like you said. Our fan bases are the one going to bat for him, and finally, it's like you get a little upset. And then, they turn the gun around on you. And it's like,
right.
It's like, what? You were just destroying him. I mean, I see all these On 3, New York Times, all this, they're making fun, clowning big game James and all this stuff. And then it's just like turning around. How could you do that after just 3 games? And I'm like, anybody that's seen it, the AD even said this was so much more than 3 games. And everybody knew that. It was a culmination to the 2025 football season. And there could not have been a bigger flop possible from James Franklin and company, and that is why he is no longer coaching Penn State.
No, you couldn't have written this you couldn't have written this to have more shock value than how it played out. I want to talk about Penn State as a program in general. For starters, when I grew up in Northeast Ohio, playing football in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. Back then, maybe a little more of a hotbed for talented football, but still is. It has always bewildered me when we look at Penn State and we look at the talent in Pennsylvania, which at the time when I was younger was similar to Ohio. It's not quite there still, but it's better than Michigan. And Penn State also owned, obviously, where you're from, right? Maryland recruiting, the DMV, Jersey. Like, that was all Penn State when I was growing up. When we look at the program, it feels to me like it always should have been on Michigan's tier, on the same tier as Michigan, but they've always felt like the number 3 guy since they've been in the Big Ten. They're the number 3 guy, and that's where they're at. And it's felt to me like Penn State fans, boosters, administration, maybe not fans, but like it's been like, that's okay. We're satisfied with where we're at. And that's always bewildered me as someone who knows intimately all the folks I'm mentioning here. Does it feel like that to you? That's what it feels like on the outside looking in.
Yeah, Penn State always kind of had this, like, they wanted to be, the academic stuff and do all that. And by the way, Ohio State's, I believe they're number 1 in the Big Ten, like in academics. Penn State's like 17th out of 18th. And
which is crazy. It was not like that when I was young.
Right, exactly. and so it's completely changed. But yeah, there was kind of this, a sense of we do it, differently, and we're still going to make it work. And I think as time went on, even pre-NIL era, that stopped being the case. And that was even up to this point. And talking to people around Penn State, that was kind of part of the demise of James Franklin, is he was so big on like family and locker room and not bringing in guys out of the portal that are going to make more than anybody on the starting roster. And that ended up killing him, because it was like, oh, you got too much loyalty. And that was kind of part of the problem as a whole. And that's been something at Penn State for a while, of being too loyal, letting people stay around a little too long, playing guys that just because he's a senior and had some good years for you, but now he's having a down year, it's like, I refuse to turn to a younger guy. Those have all been problems for Penn State. And so that was happening this year. I'm sure everybody knows the name Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. Those are Penn State's 2 running backs, 10 and 13. And they were both really good their entire career. I blocked for them, and they were fantastic. And they were kind of this thunder and lightning situation. And Nick Singleton came into this year and has been flat out not good. He just,
Why?
I
don't get it.
Watching the tape, dude, there's such a lack of confidence. He can't hit any holes. His open field moves were already not very good, but it was kind of hidden of the fact that he would just hit the holes at 1,000,000 miles per hour.
Oh.
And he had great top end speed. Never had great moves, but it was like, I'm just going to be bowling ball, and I can get up to whatever 22 miles per hour and just go. And for some reason now you mix that lack of moves with hesitation, and he is having a horrific year. Katron Allen's was averaging for a while like upwards of like 6 yards per carry. And for a while, when James Franklin was still the head coach, Nick had more carries than Katron, and he was averaging half the yards per carry. And it was this thing that didn't make any sense. And he was so stubborn. We have young wide receivers that are looking pretty good, and we have these transfer portal guys that just aren't good. And they're even giving a lack of effort from what I've seen on tape. and they refused to play some of the young wide receivers. And it was just this loyalty that I think kind of even ended it all and made it even worse. And Penn State, Pat Kraft wanted to go and say, hey, let's go after some guys. There was even whispers, not we won't say officially because he was never in the transfer portal, but there was some people that wanted to go after Mr. Tate a little bit and throw some money his way. And things like that were shooed away because it was like, no, we're not paying anybody more than anybody else makes on this team or any starter makes. Like, I don't want to upset anybody. And you can't do that in this day and age. So to your point and kind of to your question, yeah, like Penn State has this, we're going to do it differently. And it's like, do you want to get with the times and try to win? Or do you want to keep doing it differently and just be in second, third, fourth fiddle? And that's kind of where we're at. Now we're at this just meeting point of just like, okay, what are we going to do here? And I think that's where you go with your next head coach. You want to get someone that is full steam ahead. And I think Penn State's in an interesting situation because this is probably the craziest coaching carousel that there has been in a long time. And Penn State's right in the thick of it. And, it's not the greatest situation to be in if you're Penn State. But once again, I think it had to be done. James Franklin had to go.
Yeah.
I don't exactly love where you're at right now if you're Penn State, especially as far as options.
I think it's interesting when you bring up that, we're going to do it a little different. We're going to do it our way. When we look at Penn State and we look at Clemson, who has a similar philosophy, and both of them with the sky high expectations, huge flameouts, both sitting at like 3 and 4. You cannot allow this, this moral stance to trump what you got to get done in this day and age. And there are some unfortunate moves, and there has to be balance. I actually think Ohio State has done a tremendous job when it comes to, look, no, it's not ideal to bring in somebody making more than these guys who have been here. However, sometimes talent trumps. And when those guys on the roster see how good this guy is, they're going to understand. And if they don't, tough, that's just what it is. And I think they've done a really good job balancing how often they do that and still been able to keep a really good culture.
It's NFL junior at this point. Like you have to treat it that way. And like you said, I think Ohio State's doing a fantastic job. I was I actually have my favorite recruiting story ever involves Larry Johnson in Ohio State. I went to the same high school as Chase Young. So I was good friends with him, and his little cousin was on my team. And so we came up for the spring game. I guess this would have been 2017 spring game. Chase had like 5.5 sacks, like something utterly ridiculous. And so we're back and at this time it was still Urban. Yeah, it was still Urban. That was the only time I ever met Urban Meyer. And he was very quizzy. He tried, and I was a freshman. I was going in my sophomore year, but I was, basically a 5-star, and I thought I was hot shit when I wasn't. And sorry, I didn't mean to curse if we don't do that here. Sorry, guys. And so I go, I leave, I don't get an offer. And at this point, I already have like 25 offers. And so, like I said, my head's inflated. I'm 15. I got all these people kissing my butt. And I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I didn't get an offer. So we go back to Chase's place after, and we're hanging out. It was his birthday. And he comes over and he's like, did they offer you? And I'm like, nah, man, they didn't offer me. He's like, what? And then so he goes over, he calls LJ. And so LJ is my area recruiting coordinator because he recruited the DMV.
Yeah.
And he I see him talk a little bit. He hangs up the phone, and LJ, and then I get a text from LJ, and he's like, yo, I'll be there in 15 minutes. I'm like, all right. And so he texts me, he's like, I'm here. I go around back. He's like, I'm out back. He literally just rolls down the window. He's like, you got an offer from the Ohio State University. And then just pulls off. I swear to God.
It's amazing.
And it was because Chase, I don't even think technically he probably should have came out because I was young. I was a freshman, but he was he just rolled in. He was like, you got it? He was like, all right, I'm out. And that was my greatest recruiting story ever was Chase Young pressing Larry Johnson. And I doubt Urban Meyer even knew because it's who cares? He's like a 15-year-old kid just telling me he has an offer just to keep him happy.
Right.
No, peace, Chase, whatever. And so that was my greatest moment. So I did like Ohio State. It was a great time, but that was definitely the best recruiting story.
Yeah. Now at Penn State, did you know Tyler Bowen at Penn State?
Oh, big time. Tebow was my guy. So he was actually.
Tell us about Tebow. Give us the insight. I love this guy so far. I'll tell you that much.
He's a dude. I've been texting with him a little bit. I remember texting him after Texas, and I was like, dude, I love watching you guys up front. And he gave me back the typical. He was like, yeah, it was some good stuff. We got a ton of work to do. All this, and just a great guy. So he started recruiting me when I was in 8th grade because he was the offensive line coach at University of Maryland in 2016. He left to come to Penn State and then basically recruited me here to Penn State my entire time. and then left to go to Jacksonville Jaguars to be the tight end coach as soon as I basically got here. I mean, just one of the greatest guys you'll ever meet. Just I had so much love for Tebow, and just a fantastic recruiter. Like, you guys are going to get some top tier guys because of the relationships he builds, and he just knows how to just relate with everybody from all different backgrounds. And it was always so impressive to me. And then just from a coaching standpoint, you even look like Penn State has a great track record with tight ends, and obviously he's coaching offensive line, but like he created the Penn State tight end, just like Pat Fryermuth with the Steelers. I mean, so many different guys, that Brenton Strange with the Jaguars. I mean, all these different guys that are playing big time ball and made them fantastic run blockers. I love like his technique and what he teaches. He's always trying to learn new things, and that was important to me because a lot of these offensive line coaches, they get stuck in the past, and it's like, oh, we're still going to do the same technique that I learned in 1982. And that's the biggest problem. Defensive linemen have evolved, and they're doing these these crazy jump swipe moves. And not only that, but you see this evolution of like Abdul Carter's. And I know he's a stand-up linebacker, but I'm just telling you, I think one day Arvell Reese, especially because his bank account will thank him, I could see him eventually transitioning down or being a little bit more of a hybrid maybe. I think that would benefit him the most. But you see all these freaks, and it's like, all right, so we're still going to go out there. We're going to do the same exact thing we've been doing since the 1980s, and you expect to win against these just absolute alien defensive ends? Like, no, that's not going to work. And so that's one thing I really like about Tebow is he's always adapting. He's always going to different clinics and learning and say, hey, there's this new technique and, using independent hands instead of the two-hand punch. And we're going to, do this to make sure you're accelerating off the ball more. So all of that stuff, I think he's been fantastic, but just a grinder and someone that the players, and I think people underestimate this. There's a lot of coaches in college football that the players do not have respect for. That is a real thing. And if you don't have respect for your coach, that is an issue. And Tebow was someone that everybody in the facility always respected. So I'm sure it's the same thing out there in Ohio.
That's great to hear. I listened to him talk. I'm like, that guy is going to be a head coach. Like, that is head coach material all over him. Sharp as a tack. Obviously a hard worker. What do you think about the system that Ohio State has developed here, bringing in Charlie Dickey and Marcus Johnson as two, guys who were coaching, had their own offensive line room last year, working with Bowen? Basically, you got your offensive line coach, and then you got, two other offensive line coaches working with them, something that could not have happened until they changed the rules not too long ago. I think it's a real flex of Ohio State muscle to be able to pull two guys to come in with those kind of resumes and basically be, assistants, not have their own room. But what do you think of that system as an offensive lineman? Is that something that makes sense to you? Does that sound like a bit much? What do you think?
Yeah. And honestly, it all depends. And it seems like it's working out very well. It all kind of depends on how those coaches mesh with each other. Because if you do have someone that thinks very differently and wants to kind of, be the big dog, so to speak, it can get a little bit messy, but it seems like it's working great for Ohio State. And I think it's important because you have you got like 20 scholarship offensive linemen, and you have to make sure that all of them are getting the little tiny bits of coaching that they need. And if it was just Bowen and just some like random offensive line GA, that's you're not giving them the attention they need. So you can start to divvy this up and say, okay, guys can really focus on the assistant coaches can really focus specifically on a couple guys and know a little bit more. Okay, we know what each guy has to work on. This guy's got a weak edge, or this guy needs to work on getting his hands inside. And Tyler Bowen only has so much time. Like, he's got to go do X, Y, Z. So now you can go up to one of your assistant coaches. Hey, you got 30 minutes. Let's go get on the pads real quick. Let's work on making sure my elbows are tight. And there's just so much more work to kind of be shared. And I think that is really important. So as you said, the rule change of basically having, being able to have true, before, like, we would have some like assistant quality control people that can't really coach, and they would, they'd sneak in, they'd say a thing or two in your ear of like, hey, make sure you're doing this, but they can't be seen out there really coaching. And that was the big change. And so I think that's uberly important that you were able to have that kind of support now. And I think that's fantastic for Ohio State. So you got a great group of offensive line coaches, and I think you've seen that. Did they get selected for like the midseason Joe Moore Award? Were they a part of that? If they weren't, I feel like that's robbery.
I did not see that list, but man, they gotta be right. Like,
right.
You've done some breakdowns. So you've done, for everybody who hasn't seen any of Landon's work, you should follow him on X. He releases some clips breaking down film, and he did one on Luke Montgomery that was awesome. Shared some Austin Sareveld stuff. Tell us what you think about this offensive line, this group, these players. A couple of your favorites here.
Yeah, I've been pounding on the table for more love for Luke Montgomery. First off, I think he is one of the best guards in the nation, and he has not gotten close to enough love there. The combo blocks, meaning like you got a defensive tackle between Sareveld and Montgomery. I mean, every time I see it, I say these poor defensive tackles that are just getting moved out of the way. And look, there's a nastiness to this offensive line. Even the tight end group. Especially who's 89? Will Kazmarek. Like I've seen him dump. He dumps dudes. Like it's fun. Like there is an intensity that there is clearly emphasized in the meeting rooms of like, hey, we're not going to go out there and block. We're going to go out there and dominate someone and move someone from point A to point B against their will, and we're going to have some damn fun while doing it. And that's what you see out of everybody that's run blocking on this offense. But yeah, I mean, you saw Sareveld just was fantastic in pass pro pretty much this entire season. Little slight lapses against Wisconsin. Probably pass blocking wasn't as good as a whole, and they got him a couple times on some stunts in the run game. But still, just the pride that this group has, and you could see the fundamentals that they have, and understanding of how to, hey, we have a combo block. I understand leverage. Like there's a couple times where Luke Montgomery has someone lined up directly over top of him, right? And he's like, all right, I'm just going to go two hands in. I know all I got to do is hold this guy up, and Saraveld's going to come and just destroy this guy's hip. And I just know I'm going to just take this thing over. Like there is a trust for a group that, hasn't necessarily, I mean, they've gotten a lot of reps together in practice, and some of them have played together, but like it seems like they've been playing together for like 2 to 3 years. That's the vibe, especially I get from watching Sareveld and Montgomery on the left side. And I think the right side has honestly improved as the season has went on as well. I think Texas, when I was watching them week 1, it was kind of like, the left side's amazing, but the right side's got some work to do. But it's really started to come along, and that's, I know we're going to talk about it, but that's this offensive line is one of the reasons why Ohio State is far and away my favorite to win the whole thing right now.
Yeah, man, they are a nasty bunch, and I've just got the same vibe as you. Like, and this is something, as a fan of a team, even in years where we have not had a very good offensive line, it's like, look, if you're not that good, at least show me you're nasty, right? At least be mean and dirty and look like you love it. I want guys that love football. I want guys that love it. And we've had so many lines not so many, but some lines in the past, and not too distant past, that have been both not good and not nasty. And those ones I can't stand. So even if these guys weren't as good as they are, and I think they're really damn good, the attitude that they play with is just fun to watch. It's endearing, makes me love them. But about these Buckeyes, man, when I look at kind of the pushback, I almost feel like there are some folks who are just kind of like, their narrative for the past couple of years has been the super team era is over. So many people can win it now. It's wide open. And I'm sitting here looking at Ohio State week in and week out, and I follow college football like it's my job now, kind of is a little bit. And I don't see any other team that is quite on their level. I think that the odds reflect that. I don't get the feeling. It seems like there's just a lot of pushback, like to acknowledge when I look back at Georgia after 2021, we roll into that 2022 season, and the talk all year was about how dominant Georgia was and Kirby was the next Saban. I look at this Ohio State team, which is much more impressive from 21 to 22 Georgia, having turned over the majority of the roster. The fact that they're so dominant, changing coordinators, this team is incredible, man. Like, it is incredible. The defense is ridiculous. The offense, well, we just see that you're implementing more and letting Julian Sayin kind of open it up a little more. And man, that game he just had was like something different. If that guy continues to evolve and they continue to, open up the RPO game to him like they just did, dude, this team looks so next level. And if you are a college football analyst and you can't see that, I don't have much respect for your opinion, to be honest.
Well, don't watch ESPN then, Jeff. No, I said that. I think I was doing a preview. I was previewing one Ohio State. I think it was Ohio State, Illinois earlier this year. And I said, look, one of the most impressive things that I've seen is the management from Ryan Day and Brian Hartline of Julian Sayin, of slowly letting him come along. I mean, you see he's sitting there with an 80% completion rate. That is absolutely bonkers. But they were giving him the easy access, the RPOs. Hey, we're going to get you into some boot game where it's heavy play action, and we're going to give you easy decisions to make to let you come along. And then, hey, yeah, let's start to open this thing up. Let's start to stretch the ball down the field. I mean, you could stretch the ball down the field early on if you wanted with Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. You best believe that. But like I said, it was the management of how they allowed him to develop and grow, and they didn't want to rush it. I think that's such a pro move by Ryan Day and company to treat it as that. And now you're opening it up. And like I said, you got the run game really coming along now, humming. You got a couple stars that are really young guys at running back. And so it's like you look at this team, and we haven't even really talked about the defense that is just and especially with two new coordinators to handle it this way. It's crazy. And you see, I mean, everybody was clowning on Matt Patricia and saying, it's going to be this or that, and he's not really watching what he does. It's what I don't want to put him down too much, but I think it's what Jim Knowles wishes he was doing right now with the Penn State defense, because it is some NFL stuff, like the safety rotations and how they move guys around. And people are like, oh, Caleb Downs isn't doing as much this year, because he doesn't really need to. Like he's you see him like coming in at the end of the play, and sometimes he still makes plenty of plays, but he comes in, it's like, oh yeah, like Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles and McDonald, and like everybody's already handled it, because there is especially like on third down, watching how Patricia messes with the mind of the offensive line and the quarterback. It's scary, because it's like, hey, I'm showing 6 guys, and 3 of the 6 guys that are pressed up are Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, and I don't have a clue who's dropping, who's coming from where. So he'll press everybody up, drop everybody, and bring like a nickel blitz off of the cornerback, and it is just a mind. You get it. I don't know. I don't have any other word I want to say. You get it. It just messes with you completely, and it is. It's been fun to watch him start to implement this, and it's clear, as just a college football lover, a film lover, I see these guys having fun and watching the evolution of Arvell Reese. Whether you feel about, I watched it happen with Abdul Carter, and that's why I'm so there. Obviously they're a little bit different, but I'm so heavy on that. I would love to see Arvell Reese, and it'll probably more happen in the NFL eventually. I know he's a true stand-up linebacker. So was Abdul Carter. Start to maybe transition, and maybe if you're in a 3-4 defense in the NFL, to being almost a true pass rusher. Like I said, there's way more money involved as well. But watching him just completely jack up offensive linemen. Listen, I mean, I watch him like when he's truly in a stand-up, and it's just a run play, and the offensive linemen try to climb up to him, like a guard tries to get up on him, and it is just like boom. And it's like the linemen are just like helpless. And then it's like, all right, get out of my way. I'm going to go make the tackle. I mean, Arvell Reese is truly a specimen. And same thing with Sonny Styles, watching him be able to kind of dictate whatever he wants to do, especially in the run game, has been something. So it's fun to watch these guys. And then obviously someone that I actually did some film breakdowns on was Caden Curry. He playing basically every position from
all over.
I mean, yeah, he'll be out there at a wide, damn near a wide 9, and then he'll be in as the nose. And it's like watching him, and just a savvy player, has some really good moves, understands pocket presence in a sense of like, if he's at defensive end, he knows when to start to retrace. Like he has a feel for the quarterback and how they are going to move. And it's just beautiful stuff. So I've enjoyed watching it. I have already, I don't want to rush to predictions, but I've already, on another show, I put out my prediction, and I'm not too confident in Penn State heading into Columbus. Although I did put out, the last time Penn State won in Columbus was, by the way, I think we've only won twice in Columbus since we've been in the Big Ten since 1993. Only 2 times.
Damn, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, one of the only 2 was in 2011 when we had an interim head coach, actually. So it's been a minute. And you guys, who's not doing so hot was Luke Fickell, was actually your interim head coach as well, I believe, right?
Yeah.
In 2011. So yeah, interesting times.
Poor Fick. I just saw the Wisconsin AD puts out this statement the other day, essentially admitting that they've not funded the program, right? So he's saying, all right, we promised Wisconsin fans, now we're going to put money into, most importantly, players. And it's just like, dude, you hire this coach and you thought like that was it. We don't have to play like everybody else is and go out and fund the NIL. We hired the coach and he'll handle it. Wisconsin, man. I mean, this is a program that a lot of people, they look back at the 14 playoff era and say, boy, if this 16 or the 12-team playoff existed during that era, Penn State would have been in it every year. Wisconsin had more wins than Penn State over that era. Like they were number one, just barely. But we're talking about a program that a lot of people overlook, and they've got money. That's the thing. They're a behemoth. If you're telling me Indiana can fund their program like this, Wisconsin can as well. And that is just embarrassing. I feel bad for Fick. People are saying they don't think he's a good coach now. It was all smoke and mirrors or his coordinators at Cincinnati. I don't buy it. Not at all.
I'm with you. I do. I feel for him too. I feel anybody that doesn't get the full support, but yeah, that's a rough situation. That's not a good football team out there at the moment. That is evident on tape.
Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, the four behemoths of the Midwest, 12 times this century has a job at one of those programs been open, the head coaching job. And Penn State's open. Obviously, it's open in a year that we are now seeing Florida, probably FSU, probably Auburn. But Penn State, fully funded, which it sounds like from what Pat Kraft is saying, the next coach is going to come in for this interview, and he is going to say to him, we are ready to be that kind of dude. Like, we are ready to put our full support behind the football program and take the next step to win championships. That's what it sounds like to me. And if that is the way he's approaching it when they bring the next guy in, I think, because I believe geography, as far as recruiting, has been so watered down. When I'm looking at Kirby Smart have to fight with Ohio State for Bo Atkinson, a defensive end in the transfer portal, and they literally grow them in his backyard. Geography it means so much less. I've watched the last, two classes, maybe 6 or 7 top Ohio recruits leave the state. It just means so much less now in this era. I think Penn State is the top job in this cycle. If there are what I think they are all the way in, are they? Is that the feeling you get?
100%. So Pat Kraft, Penn State's athletic director, he was at Temple and Boston College before this. 2 places where it's kind of like whatever happens. No, there's no one really breathing down your neck. You obviously have boosters, but it's no big dog. You're at Penn State now, and as much as we can all agree it was time for James Franklin to go, Pat Kraft still made that decision, and it was like, okay, as much as we all know, like I said, we already talked about all the James Franklin stuff. You still fired a coach that, obviously not this season, but the past 3 seasons has won 10 or more games. You better go out and hit a home run higher. Now, I think you look at here or Florida, and you can say, you better go, and you that's kind of the expectation of, maybe it's scary for head coach that you better, if you come to Penn State, you got to win quickly because a lot of people's jobs are on the line, and that's kind of the expectation. But that's the expectation now in the NIL era. It's like you have so much available to you. There's no patience for you to wait and build a team and say, hey, I need 3 to 4 years of my recruits. No, you better go out in the transfer portal. And if we're going to give you the money, which, yes, Penn State is all in. I mean, the donors, everybody. And that was a big reason why, it was part of the reason why I think James Franklin also went, is because there was a huge piece of the donor pool that just didn't want to give. And so now you bring that all back into the equation. And I'll tell you, Juck, what's kind of funny, like literally just my views. And part of it's because Penn State is without a head coach and it's interesting. But like, I've literally noticed my views go up a significant amount since the firing of James Franklin. I've had people say, I didn't watch the team. I didn't support the team because I didn't like James Franklin. I think it sounds crazy, but I think the amount of people that rings true for is actually a bigger amount than most people would assume. And so that was the same way with Letterman. That was the same way with fans. That was the same way with boosters. So I think Penn State has this full backing now. Are you going to be able to go out and get a big dog? And so we're trying to ring the phone of Kalen DeBoer, and we're trying to ring the phone of, of all these like kind of big time coaches. I don't know if you're going to be able to hit that home run that you necessarily want. And so do you want to go the route of picking up one of those young guys of trying to go get a Joe Brady or a Stein, and Hartline's been thrown in there because I will say
I think that's ridiculous.
Oh, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. Yeah. Like I said, Hartline just an elite, recruiter and developing wide receiver, but hasn't shown enough as a coordinator, in my opinion, at all to be able to warrant that. So you look at that. And now I will say is, if you're Penn State, do you want to go the younger guy route? Because last year, the college football playoffs, 2024, 8 of the 12 head coaches were first-time head coaches.
Brother, absolutely. That's where I'm going.
Right.
I'm going, an Alex Golish, John Sumrall, what's our homie over at Fran Brown? Like I'm going a young, hungry dude who's been showing some success at a slightly lower level. Like that's what I want. I want that guy with all that piss and vinegar and hunger. I don't want Matt Rule. Like I'll tell you straight up, as an Ohio State fan, I would feel really happy if Penn State hired Matt Rule. If Penn State hired Fran Brown, all right, I'm concerned. I'm officially concerned that they're on the come up.
I'm with you on that. People, I'm telling you, because of the fact
Brady sounds good too, but I worry about him sticking around college football. What if he does good?
Right, absolutely. And so there's a heavy hankering for Urban Meyer. I will tell you, it's not going to happen. But because I don't know how many people, but like Urban Meyer was like almost signed, sealed, delivered to fill the shoes of Joe Paterno, and then everything happened, and obviously did not come here. But there's like every time every time that Urban Meyer comes to town, like he goes to like Sue Paterno's house, and like all the people on the board like know him, and so they really want Urban. I don't think Urban wants to come here because that would kind of mess up, I feel like, the legacy a little bit, and also like I don't want people are like, oh, Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, Urban. I'm like, why would you want that? Like, don't get people that have run their course. Get someone, like you said, that is young, that is hungry, that can be one of those kind of, it doesn't matter, offense or defensive minded geniuses, that you get that mastermind. Like that's what you need. And you need someone that's going to inject life into the players, into the donors, into everybody. So it's going to be an interesting coaching search here. But if you're Pat Crafton, if you're Penn State, I don't think you can wait much longer after whatever. I think the last game's November 30th. We go to Rutgers, which, Juck, I'm sad to say this, could be the battle for the worst team in the Big Ten when we go to Rutgers. Can't believe I'm saying that, thinking about where we were at the beginning of the season.
It's still such a talented roster, though. Don't you think I haven't looked at the schedule, but it feels like they should be able to win by, like, I thought they'd beat Iowa just based off their talent. Iowa, they're pretty good though, but they should beat Rutgers, man. They got to beat Rutgers.
Well, you'd hope, but you get to the point. I'll just tell you. So I was on the 2021 team with Penn State, which we didn't have high expectations coming into the year, but we were the number 4 team where we went to Iowa and lost. They were number 3, and when a locker room starts to fall apart, it goes quick, and especially if there's a lack of leadership, like it's easy for people to kind of check out and just be like, I'm done. Especially. And this is kind of new circumstances for a lot of people in college football, but especially Penn State, of like in 2021, at least as a young guy, I was a freshman. I got to play a bunch at the end of the season. And I'm like, all right, this is great. Like, I'm going to try my hardest. Like, I'm going to go after it because I want to start next year. Every single coach and every single player on this roster has no clue if they're even going to be here next year. So that's a difference too. So it is easy. And I'm not saying Penn State's going to do this. I think they're going to put their best foot forward and give the maximum amount of effort that they can. But it's kind of easy. If you get down 2 touchdowns to Ohio State, I don't expect much fight after that. If you can come out and throw a punch, yeah, maybe you can try to kind of keep. I think it opened 17.5. I think I saw Penn State and Ohio State, something like that. It's right. It's like 17.5 is it?
I didn't see it yet. I just saw idiots citing a look ahead line from weeks ago that was like 4.5. I'm like, no, that's not the line. That's not an opening line. That's a look ahead line.
Yeah, that was never going to be anything that anybody could bet at this point in time. So I don't know. I'm curiously optimistic, I guess, but I think this Ohio State roster coaching staff is just so much better. And this is something I wouldn't underestimate. We know how Ryan Day is. What was the quote? Like, we're going to hang 100 on those effers with Jim Harbaugh. Wasn't it something like that? So we know how he is when someone, kind of messes with him a little bit. I respect. That's the type of coach I want to play for.
Hell yeah.
You got some not so good beef with Jim Knowles. How do you think that Hartline and Day are going to go after this Penn State defense. They're going to be licking their chops because this front seven for Penn State, let me just tell you, are absolutely lost at the moment. It is not good. And so I just look at it and like, I'm not a betting man, but I'm like, damn, I would still take like, this isn't advice. I'm not giving advice, but I'm just looking at, I'm like, I don't know how this Penn State team is going to be able to keep it even competitive with Ohio State. That's what I worry about. I'm just like, because I just don't see how we're going to be able to run the ball. We've struggled with that. And then I'm like, how do we pass it? Like, our wide receivers that can't get open against UCLA are going to get open against Ohio State. So
Yeah.
like, it's just that's hard for me. And then obviously the Penn State, like I said, the Penn State defense as a whole has really struggled. And now you're facing a wide receiver corps that 15 teams on the NFL would trade their wide receiver room for. So that's where I'm at. I'm very much a realist when I cover anything, and watching all the tape and watching Julian saying of just how surgical he is. Once again, 80% completion rate is absolutely insane. I'm like, okay, where do you find a competitive game in looking at this thing, Juck?
Yeah, there is not a whole lot of things that would make me happier from now to the end of the season, and as there's not many opportunities to do a whole lot than to really score a lot of points and embarrass Jim Knowles. Like, that whole thing just put a sour taste in my mouth, man. The really sour taste. Asking for a raise the week before the national championship and saying you did it because you didn't want to cause a distraction by asking after the season. It's just like, once I heard that comment, I was like, all right, I'm out on this dude. But that would make me really happy. Regarding the Penn State hire, man, this new rule that they just implemented, where after a coach leaves or gets fired, you got the transfer portal, but you get the 5 days. They got to wait 5 days now till after a new hire. I think this is incredibly advantageous if you get the new coach in. And now he gets to go to the young studs. He gets to go to the Chaz Colemans, and he gets to go to the young dudes and say, listen, I know what you're thinking, but hold on here. You're a priority of mine. I'm building this with you. Like, I think it is going to really help to make for a really quick, I don't want to say turnaround, but for the new guy to really get on his feet fast. And I don't think we've seen so many examples of this happening really fast. Like, I don't think this is going to be, looking forward, if they nail a good coach, Penn State is, on a 3-year dip where we got to wait for him to climb back up. I think they're going to be right back up. That's the feeling I get.
Yeah, like you said, I think there is the opportunity, especially when you bring him in. So I think you have to bring someone in December 1st. Like that has to be.
Yeah, man.
You can't, because you got signing day too. As much as it's all transfer portal, you still want to sign a good 2026 class, and basically everybody has decommitted from Penn State in that class, or as the kids say now, I'm still committed, but I'm reopening my recruitment. I'm like, damn, I thought we were bad in 2021 with
right, dude.
me posting blessed to receive an offer from X university. So it's just it's crazy how much I was just happy to put on Juck. I just wanted to put on some gloves and then maybe sneak those gloves into my pocket and get out with some like Ohio State gloves. Now It's like, all right, yeah, can I get $2 million? Yeah. I think you're right, but honestly, that's the number one name that I think Penn State's going to be battling Ohio State for. Is Chaz Coleman is a absolute freak of nature. By the way, has only gotten, it's something like 15 snaps in the past 2 games. And we were like, our coaches were asked about it, and they were like, oh, like he was kind of sick and like didn't really fit the game plan against Iowa. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't care. I don't care that he's a freshman. I'm like, he's one of the best players on the field every time he steps out there. So I am sure that, agents are already talking. In Ohio State, where you sit right now, I'm not exactly super familiar with the recruiting class, but it doesn't seem like you guys have like true like killers as far as edge rushers, at least on the roster right now. He has the ability to be a superstar edge rusher.
Without a doubt.
So if you're Ohio State, you're coming with everything. And if I'm Chaz Coleman, do I want to go back home and be a star there? And like you said, it kind of depends on that 5 days. How much can you talk to your star guys? Who can you keep around? But if you're Penn State too, you're graduating almost all of your offense. Like all 3 wide receivers that are transferring, Aller's gone. Both running backs are gone. 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen are gone. One of the tight ends is gone. Like a lot of people are moving on anyway. So it's going to be a big turnover. And this is something that Penn State fans aren't used to, but this is far and away going to be the biggest portal acquisition that Penn State has ever had.
Well, it's going to be huge.
It's going to be an interesting time to follow Penn State football.
For sure. For sure. And an interesting time to follow Ohio State football. And this has been awesome, dude. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking an entire hour with me. I didn't mean to hold you up so long, my man. But this has been great, dude. I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait to do it again. You have brought some really interesting perspective on the Penn State thing from an offensive line standpoint. Love the Larry Johnson story. That was fantastic, bro. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Juck. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We'll talk soon.